Welcome to the Elevate Podcast, your resource for all things business, brand, and leadership. We are excited you have decided to join us today.
Hey, welcome back to the Elevate Podcast, you guys. Robert Kalin here.
Tony Frasconi, good to be with you. We've got a part two.
Part two.
Coming up. Robin, thank you so much for being back.
Absolutely. We just started talking and we thought, let's finish the conversation for our listeners.
We had, after we finished the episode, you had just shared so much insight that we couldn't let you walk away. So we were like, let's just shoot this episode, get a part two, and share some insights.
You shared so much experience, Robin, from the nonprofit sector, the private sector, the leadership side of things, and we know that we've got so many out there that need to know how to manage teams once they get them on the team.
Yeah.
And sometimes when those teams are volunteers, it can be difficult to navigate.
Yeah.
And with all of Robin's nonprofit experience, we thought let's unpack that with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you wouldn't mind, feel free to just have the mic and share with the listeners your experience there.
Well, one of the things, and as we were just visiting, one of the things that nonprofits struggle with is the need for volunteers, recruiting volunteers, and keeping volunteers, and then in that, what does that look like just on an ongoing basis? Once again, systems and processes matter. Mm-hmm. Now, with volunteers, they need extreme clarity and direction, and if they don't get it, which happens a lot, then there's chaos, confusion. They don't execute what you're expecting, and then it's not a win-win. And why would they continue to show up? So with volunteers, to recruit everybody's been born to serve, and it's just they need somebody to tap on their shoulder and say, I would love to have you serve in this capacity, or I see this in you. That's the calling out the potential in them.
Yeah.
Just somebody that you've connected with, at the grocery store or somebody at church or wherever, and just say, I see something in you, and I see this potential in you, and you should be serving here. And so you're already calling out potential in somebody, and then when you get them on the volunteer team, you're just actually now letting them live that out. Same thing with hiring people in corporate. You're going to be looking for potential and growth. Mm-hmm. And that's the other part of it with our volunteer teams, being committed to their constant growth, which means you need to be in relationship with them. And so often with volunteer teams, you have them, you give them direction, but then you don't have that relational component. And the relational component is what keeps them, keeps them and causes them to stick.
Yeah, I've heard the statistic that, people don't leave jobs, they leave managers.
Absolutely.
And, in my experience, that's been 100% true. And, when I think about how large organizations structure themselves, and us small guys can kind of take a look at this and go, why do they do it like that? Well, they figured out when a large organization structures itself, managers tend to not have more than 5 to 6 direct reports for the relational reason that you just said.
Yep.
Right. You have to have a relationship with them and understand where they're going and where they're growing to.
Yes.
I know a lot of entrepreneurs and small businesses that are growing that have more than 5 to 6 people on their team, and it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
At some point, something's going to drop off. And so how do you structure it as you go to build leaders in your organization who are having those direct reports and training them along the way to replace yourself?
You do need to, even for volunteer teams, create an org chart. Mm-hmm. So you have the head of the team, who let's say I'm going to use he's in head usher. Then you have weekend team leads. So you have people they're all sharing the load. So, and Moses is a great example, right? That you've got groups of 10s, 50s, hundreds, thousands. So everybody's got different capacities. So you really want to identify their capacity. But you set up an org chart and you fill in the blanks and then see what's empty that you still need to fill. Finding the actual head of a department is a little bit more challenging. And here's what I did find with getting somebody to actually head over a department is I have to share with them everything that's in my head. I can give them all the details. I can show them everything that needs to happen. We can walk through it weekend after weekend after weekend. But if they don't know how I'm thinking about it, so downloading, what am I seeing? Why am I looking at this? Why am I changing this? And so not just the task itself, but what is the thought behind it and the why behind it. Once I was able, that was an aha moment for me. Once I was able to do that, then I was able to relinquish authority to team leads, to the heads, and they were able to run with it, and I no longer had to have my hand on it.
That is gold.
Yeah.
You guys, I'm going to pull that back just a second because we need to hear this again.
Okay.
The why behind the what
Yep.
will change your management style. It'll change your...
Period.
I mean, that is it right there.
Yeah.
My question is, how do you get the employee or the volunteer to pay attention to that, to key in on the thought process and the why behind the task itself? Because ultimately, like that's a sign of leadership, right?
Sure.
Yep.
Some people might be able to naturally do that and just be like, okay, I see how Robert's thinking about this.
Yeah.
And then once you know that I know how you're thinking about it, then you're like, dude, just like you said, hands off.
Right.
You run with it now.
Yeah.
So we do a training at Elements where my wife is really good at this. She will pull everybody out to the front.
Can we get that
as a
cut?
customer.
Can we cut that? He said his wife is good at this.
She is great. And what she'll do is she'll bring them out to the front just like a customer would be. And she'll say, this right here, I'm seeing that, let's say something small. The chairs aren't aligned with the table. So I'm going to take the chair because it feels better when you walk in when things have a place and they're put in order. I'm going to face the cold case and make sure that things are pulled forward so it feels full and fresh, like it's not used. You know, I'm going to wipe down the counters or whatever it looks like, right?
Yes.
She's walking them through. This is what I physically see, and I'm telling you out loud. You know.
Yep. Yeah.
And so there's an intentionality behind the person that is managing or leading to actually call that out.
Yes.
Jackie, I love
So I'm
you.
moving this sign, and here's why. Because when people walk in, this is what they're going to see. So yeah, being very explaining that whole process is really important.
Yeah.
And and also to answer your question is, when you call something out on people, their potential, most likely nobody's ever done that before. And now you're setting an expectation that they want to rise up to.
Yes.
So they're going to show up to the game. They're going to show up to serve. And it's amazing, always amazing to me that people show up week in and week out to serve. They're not getting paid, and they serve at an ownership level. You would think that they were actually getting paid and they were on paid staff, but they're volunteers because they see the vision. They have clear direction. They own it. And I call it keys to the kingdom. I'm giving you keys to the literally keys to the building, keys to my office. You have all access. You're welcome to any meeting that I'm in. And so they get that full buy-in. And when somebody's able to be on the inside of your organization, the part that most people don't get to see, that's it's a privilege, but it calls them to lead at a higher level.
That's so
There's
good.
a quote that I love that I think captures what Robin's saying. It's something like, sometimes you have to believe in someone else's belief in you until your belief kicks in.
Yes.
And that's what I think
Exactly.
of when you're explaining that. It's like you're lifting them up. You're saying, I see this in you. And then people they rise up.
Yes.
And they're kind of borrowing your confidence.
Yes.
Until
100%.
they see that they can do it.
Yeah. And I would say, for anybody who maybe is feeling a little bit scared about calling it out in somebody else, if you've thought it, say it.
Yes.
Don't hold it in. Like, say it out loud. Tell the other person. It's just like in any relationship. When you think of it, say it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's a reason why it's popped into your mind, so just say it. And, you can, I often preface, this might sound crazy, right? So, you can have a little,
Yes.
And if it doesn't resonate with you, that's okay.
Yeah.
But I really feel like I need to say this to you. And so then you you've kind of given them an out.
Yeah.
but ultimately, most of the time you're spot on. You
Right.
see what they don't see, and so many people have not had that potential called out in them.
That's so good. You guys, this reminds me of there's a thing called the Johari window, which explains that, right? Which is for those of you who maybe don't know what this is, go on Google, look up the Johari window, J-O.
Robert, please watch your
I don't know how to say it.
Please watch your language.
I don't know how to spell it. Johari, I believe.
It'll correct them if they're
It
wrong.
will correct.
Yes.
Just voice text it into your phone. And that's what I have to do. That's why I can't spell. It basically talks about the idea that, all of us have blind spots that we don't see, that other people can see.
Yeah.
And
yes.
some of those blind spots are the things that we're gifted in that we just haven't had it called out of us yet. And so I love that you brought that up.
Yeah.
When I think of blind spot, I'm thinking like something almost negative.
Yeah.
I can't see that I'm doing this thing that's not appropriate or not right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's like the flip of that. It's like this
Absolutely.
blind spot on a gifting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll say, a lot of it, the reason it's a blind spot is because it comes natural to you and you don't recognize that it's a gift.
Right.
And so somebody else just saying, man, how do you do that? You're just naturally good at, like, Robin, you're really good at just meeting new people and talking to new people. For some people, that's really hard.
Yeah.
And that's a gift. And so the fact that you took that position and you built teams and all of that.
Yeah. And that's what makes coaching so fun.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Is ultimately you get to call out the potential in people that they don't even realize is there. And it's already inside of them, which makes it fun. So can I tell you a story about one of the volunteers? Because I think he embodies kind of the challenge that we have with volunteer teams, and we call them volunteer staff. So, but he had been, his name is Chuck, and he had been on the team prior to me taking over the team. And so he was my biggest thorn in my side. He'd been around a long time. You run across people like that. They've been there, done that. They know how it should be. You're new. You don't know what you're talking about. Yep. And so he gave me a hard time for the longest time. And he called me one morning and he said, "Can I come in and talk to you?" And I said, "Sure, I'm here." And I thought,
preparing for the worst.
I'm prepared exactly in my mind. I'm thinking, what does he want now? What did I do now? And I'm trying to run through my mind, what could this possibly be about? So he comes into my office and he sits down and he starts crying. And he's got some really serious things going on in his life that he wants and he needs help with, and he doesn't know where to go. And what's interesting is he came to me. Right? And he and I did not get along, but he came to me. And in an instant, my attitude shifted towards him to move heaven and earth to help this man. And immediately got some other people on the phone, got them in the office, got him everything that he needed, and got him the help that he needed and the support that he needed, because it was a family issue. He was really broken. And that's a thing. Everybody's got something going on in their world, and we should never assume... Never assume that they're just being jerks, because they aren't. Most likely aren't. They've got something going on in their world that you just don't know about, and they're not going to share it with you. So after that, our relationship changed. Now, I'm not going to say that he became this soft, gentle teddy bear, because he didn't. He still had to. He's one of the volunteers I always had to call in the office, talk to him about his attitude, or I'd have to pull him off the team for a while and have him sit in service so that he would just get filled up. And so I never fired him, but I laid him off for a while and put him back on the team, repositioned him on the team to spots that fit better for him. And into this is, we became friends over the years. He found his fiance, and he was happiest. He was the happiest person I'd ever seen. He was the happiest he'd ever been in his life. He passed away unexpectedly in the garden one day, and they called me at home and to tell me that he had passed away. And I was devastated, because I genuinely loved and adored this man, and we had developed a bond and a relationship over time. It would have been so easy for me to just get him off the team and let him go sit in service or whatever, and never serve on a team again because of his abrasiveness. But because he had a story, I listened to his story, I took the time to build a relationship. Yeah. He constantly stayed engaged. When he passed away, he was the happiest he had ever been. So we change people's lives when we decide that we're going to help them grow. We're going to find out what their story is, and we're going to not give up on them. Does that mean you don't have to fire a volunteer at some point in time? No, you may have to, and that's okay depending on what's going on. But repositioning people and taking into another place if they need to be, and taking that time is life-changing and generational changing as well. So he left a legacy, and I got to be a part of a legacy because I didn't, blow him off.
That's amazing.
It sounds like you led with something called compassion and grace.
Heart.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
With heart.
Right.
But no, it's amazing when you find value. She took the time to find the value in that. You have this person that is in front of you, and just signing them off would be so much.
It'd be easy.
Yeah.
Especially when they're overly critical of you.
Right.
Right. I mean,
right.
Let's call that out. But still, Robin was able to do that, and it doesn't sound like it was ever easy. There was still bumps on the road, but the growth process not only was for Chuck, it was for Robin.
Yes.
Because Robin
100%.
saw along the way what could be and the pivots that she may have wanted to make earlier or later, and is why she is coaching people now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And he's one of many stories,
right?
But it's a good one.
It's a great one, and I think it pulls out. A lot of times we have an idealistic vision of like the perfect employee, the perfect volunteer. Right. And that's just not reality.
Right.
Life is messy.
Yep.
Anything we do with other people is messy. There's going to be brokenness. There's going to be hurt feelings. There's going to be times where we feel like we don't know what to do or, need to seek outside help. I would imagine that you probably had conversations with Chuck, with your pastor or, some other people on the leadership team to say, hey, I've got this person. What do I do?
Yeah.
And to use your phrase of pulling back the curtain, to say, hey, life is messy and we are all in it together. And I love the care that you have for each person. That doesn't come out just with the story of Chuck that you tell. It comes out in every relationship that you have in your life that I've seen with your husband, with your kids, at the Generous Network. And I really appreciate that about you. And I love, love, love the fact that you pulled out that story to just share with the audience.
Yeah.
You guys think about the people that you have on your team that might be difficult. How can you know their story a little bit?
Yeah.
How can you maybe pull them aside, have a one-on-one conversation with them and just say, hey, just wanted to see how you're doing today. What's going on in your world?
Yeah.
And as a leader, when we share first, it often makes things a little bit easier. So if you're open with them and honest and transparent, it can help pull those conversations out a little bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, Robin, I had a question for you. When this episode drops, it's going to be right in the middle of Women's History Month.
Yeah.
And, thinking about women in leadership positions and that you've appreciated in your life, who is a woman that, that comes to mind when you think of Women's Appreciation Month?
Well, and I think you had asked me this earlier. The first person that popped to my mind is Condoleezza Rice. She walks with authority, and she is has common sense. She is very thoughtful, diplomatic. I have missed seeing her in the forefront over the last few years, but I think she's a courageous woman. She's an embodiment of what a woman I think is, just strong and courageous and bold and willing to think about the world that she stepped into politics, into that political arena. And she carried herself very well and represented women in the United States well.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
I remember seeing her when I was, a young man, maybe in early 2000s. And she was kind of at the height of, in the media quite often. And one time CNN was doing an interview with her. And the only time she had in her day to talk with CNN was like at 5:30 in the morning when she was on the Stairmaster. So she's on the Stairmaster, and she's reading material while she's on the Stairmaster, and then she's got this thing in her ear, and she's talking to CNN. And I'm like, whoa, that's a whole. I've got a long way to go. That's a whole nother level of leadership.
Yes,
and
she's a great example.
Really is.
I think that's a great example of just inviting people into your life.
Yeah,
like you don't have to change your life in order to do the things. Like, bring people to it.
Yeah,
yeah,
invite them in.
Yeah, Robin, you guys, if you haven't listened to the last episode where we had Robin on, part 1 of getting the right people on the team, go back and listen to that one. And then also, Robin, can you just share with people how to get a hold of you again?
Okay. Yes, you can go to my website, which is thewellnessfactor.coach, or you can find me on social media, Instagram, Facebook. I am on LinkedIn. I'm not there often, but I am on LinkedIn. So Instagram, Facebook, Robin R. McCoy.
That's awesome. And your website, I just want to say, is absolutely fantastic. You have a lot of resources on there for people that are like free resources. Go on there, check it out. You do classes often and workshops and things like that. And so you guys go to the wellnessfactor.coach and check out all the things that Robin has going on. You will be blessed, you guys.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's been an honor having you on the show. So thanks for coming on and staying for a second episode.
I know, right? It was fun.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, Elevate Podcast out. We'll see you next time.
See you next time, guys.
Bye.